And we are live. Good evening to everyone tuned in with us, or good afternoon, or good morning. There's people that are not in Doha, and lucky for you because the weather here is quite sticky. Welcome to another virtual talks brought to you by Workinton. It's me, Hamid Amani. It's always great to be able to have these conversations and engage with people in our community through this amazing tool that we have that we are still yet to figure out. Today we're joined by a group of people who are all about design thinking. So before I introduce everyone, I want to ask members of the audience to answer this question. How often do you think about design in your day? I'll type it up here so that you guys can have that as a reference question. Answer that question for me and I'll check back with those answers later. And without further ado, let me introduce our guests from Atolye. We have the founder and co-founders, Engin, Ayaz, and Kerem, Alper, that are here with us. Can you give us a quick introduction of what Atolye is while I type the question quietly?
Get started, Kerem, and then you can compliment. So this is Engin. Great to be here. We've been doing a lot of trips back and forth to Qatar, meeting very beautiful, interesting people like Hamad, like Maryam, like many others, maybe possibly some of you that are joining. And it's an honor, it's a delight to be sharing today this conversation with you. So as trained in architecture, engineering, and interaction design, my background is basically design across different scales, and Atolye has been a great vessel to explore this, let's say, creative problem-solving field in different industries, sectors, domains. And our journey in Atolye has also taken us to different organizations, different challenges. We will do a very brief snapshot of it as part of Kerem's share out, but hopefully in the Q&A session, we would be happy to talk more about details too. But in short, as Atolye, we operate as a creative services organization in Istanbul, London, Dubai, and Doha right now with a core team of 70 people and a wider community of 300 people. Our purpose is to create environments where individuals and organizations thrive to create a positive impact. Thank you.
You're muted, Hamad. You're still on mute.
Super sensitive click. I said, Aicha, you're also from the team and you're the one who does all the work. Is this correct?
Come again, I'm sorry.
I said, you're the one in the team who does all the work. Is this true?
No, actually, we all do the work. Yeah. I just joined the Atolye like a month and a half. I'm still new here. Originally, I'm a product designer and a problem solver since childhood. I come from a big family, so to survive, you need to be a problem solver. I work on product design, industrial design, and then I did this detour in my career, where I went to digital design, and that's where I thrived because using design and technology is the future. So yeah, that's basically what I did.
Like-minded people and working in Qatar. We have the co-founder of Makery, Maryam and Semaitt. Hey, there she is.
Yes.
Right, timed it perfectly. Good afternoon for you, or are you in the same time zone?
Yes, good evening, actually. Yes.
You're currently in Moscow.
Yes, I am.
But you are the co-founder of Makery here in Qatar. Can you give us a quick brief about what it is and what design thinking is and what everyone can look forward to today?
Sure. I'm Maryam Semaitt, co-founder of Makery. My official background is in business administration, and then I did my master's in service design, which is based on the methodology of design thinking. I am co-founder with Nawar, my partner, of Makery, the first local service design consultancy here in Doha. And I am very happy to be surrounded by such people.
It's great to have you. So I believe we will start. And just for everyone who's tuning in, if you're just tuning in, check out the question that we've asked everyone. And if you can have answers to those in the comment section, that would be great. How often do you think about design in your day? The objective is we'll have different answers when I check in with you later. And I will throw now to Kerem, who will start us through the journey, I believe, of what design thinking is. So,
thank you, Ahmad. So hi everyone, I'm Kerem, the other half of Engin. My background is actually similar to Maryam's here. I started my career off as at Lehman Brothers, of all places, and basically brought the bank to bankruptcy in 2008, at which point I actually switched from finance and business into a world of creativity and design. I did my master's at Stanford, both as an MBA as well as a design degree, which is where I, together with Engin, started working on the idea of Atolye. And soon after, we both moved back to our part of the world, which is where we belong, to create long-term impact. And it's very exciting to actually share the stage with Maryam and the Makery team, because it really feels like, even though we are on two parts of the Middle East, us more in Istanbul and now more in and now making more progress in Qatar, and them starting off in Qatar, we're very excited to continuing our collaborations. What I'll kick it off with is a quick presentation, and ideally, actually, I would like to do it in a more interactive way, but I guess we will have the typing chat for that. And because my system somehow didn't allow me to do screen share, Aicha will do the slides with me, so bear with me. As
I told you she's the one who does all the work. No one believed me. See, Aicha is the one responsible for the screen. Right. So evolution of design thinking. For everyone listening, don't be afraid to type your questions, and I'll interrupt Kerem where I can.
Yeah. Everybody sees the full screen, right? Evolution of design thinking. So I want to first start by asking the question of what you see in this next slide. Can you type in the chat? What is it that we see here? I hope to get some rock. Yeah. What do you think this rock is used for? What do you think what we see here is used for?
Isn't it the thing we're using? Are we not designing the rock?
So what we see here, I guess it's going to take a while if we wait for answers from everyone. What we see here is the first design tool. At least as far as we know, we as archaeologists, scientists, the humankind, as far as we know, this is the first design tool. What do you think is the question? And it's actually dating back to 2.5 million years ago. This tool that we found. What do you? Yeah, this was going to be my question. What do you think is the question that this tool was trying to get an answer to? I read here to make fire. The question this tool was an answer for was, how do I cut things? So in the next slide, and obviously, what is this? An easier one to throw at strangers. Yeah, it's a arrow, right? And the answer, and this is dating back to now 400,000 years ago. Yes, it's a spear. And the question that this tool was an answer for, was trying to come up with an answer for, was, how do I hunt? So So the first question was, how do I cut? This is how do I hunt, right? Quite primitive questions for the kinds of questions that we are asking ourselves today. So as we go through the evolution of, in a way, design, this is about 40,000 years ago. What is the question you think is being explored here? This is again 40,000 years ago.
Which one do we eat?
Nice. How do I communicate? This is exactly the right question. How do I tell a story? Love it. Yes, exactly.
Awesome.
So how can we tell stories to others? Right? We went from how do I hunt, how do I cut, to how do we now, us, tell stories to others, right? The question all of a sudden became a lot more complex. How do we as a community tell stories to others? Next one, please. So I would argue that the urge to design is a natural human instinct. It's all of us have this. And it follows a very basic process. And now I will tell you what the process is. We consider a situation, the situation we are currently in, then we imagine a better situation, and then we act to create that improved situation, which is why it's a very, very basic process that we follow. The situation I'm currently in is I'm hungry. I imagine a better situation where I'm actually full, I ate something, and there is an animal that's passing in front of me. So I ask the question of, how do I act to create that improved situation? I say, I need to somehow bring that animal down, and I create a device to actually get me to that better improved situation. So that's basically the very basic flow of design. And that's why it's a very, human, deep instinct that we have as all individuals in society. So with that, I will now pass the mic to Maryam to help us to tell us a little bit more about her journey as a designer.
The beginning of the presentation, I think it's 40,000 years ago. I think we're going to hop on a little time machine. We're going to come to closer to today. Just building on what you said about the problem and about having a challenge and how do we fix that challenge, I would like to can we go to the next slide, Aicha, please? So just showing you an example of a problem that we could face on a daily basis, looking at the table, for example. Right in front of us here, we have a broken table. And in the next slide, we will have another table with another problem, which is it's all the paint is peeling off, and it's just starting to look a little bit more rustic. And then we have the next table, which has another problem, which is a set of stains on the table. So for these daily problems that we face, we as natural human beings, we would think of a solution to fix these problems. So naturally, we will users usually come up with their own creative ways of fixing problems on a daily basis. So for example, if we have a wobbly table, I think all of us have done this at some point for wobbly tables and chairs, mostly at schools and offices. We usually do that. And then in the next slide, for example, this is like a more like IKEA. Sometimes they provide some solutions for wobbly tables and chairs. But again, we need to go back to the toolbox and find the tools that we need to fix the right problems. Every tool has a specific purpose. Just like Kerem mentioned, the stone is to cut things, the spear is to hunt the animals. But as designers, as human beings, we live with a set of tools, and the toolbox keeps growing. And we keep adding different tools to that toolbox as we evolve, and we never have enough tools. Sometimes I don't have the tools in my own box. I need to borrow it from someone, or I need to ask someone to come and fix the table for me, for example. So we have to be creative on how do we address the problem. And then in the next slide, we have, I think there was a few slides that we missed out, but we need to be able to solve the right problem. And sometimes solving that right problem means throwing that table away and buying a new one. And this is actually a challenge that we face as human beings when we work on a certain project or when we work on something for a very long time. And we try to fix it in so many ways and it doesn't work. And we try to fix it and it just does not work. Sometimes it's time to put it out, hit the escape button and start something fresh. This is where sentimental value, we get attached to certain things, we get attached to certain objects. We try to keep them for as long as possible, but sometimes we just need to let go and start completely fresh. And now we hop back on the time machine and we go back to Kerem and we go back to the timeline of the evolution of design thinking. Kerem?
Thank you, Maryam. So what I want to get to is, as we were going through the questions that we are asking, the design itself is all about the questions that we ask. And hence, the next slide, please. Hence, the evolution of design is actually the evolution of the questions we've been asking. So it's as simple as that. As our questions are evolving, so do the designs that we are creating for the world. So if we continue with that journey, this is Göbekli Tepe, actually a site in Turkey, which is, as far as we know, the first civilization dating back to 12,000 years ago. And it asks a fundamentally more complex question, which is, in the next slide, please. How might we create an environment for a large community to be together, to work together, to sustain themselves, right? That's a fundamentally more difficult, more complex question than how do we communicate to others, or how do I hunt, or how do I cut. So if we continue with this is about 1800s, and the question that is behind this, which is the printing press, is how might we organize and disseminate knowledge, right? It's both organization of knowledge as well as dissemination of knowledge to others. Moving on, there is obviously a lot of things that we are skipping through. Sorry, one slide before, I think. Yeah, sorry, one slide ahead, sorry. So in 1800s, go ahead, Aicha, one more.
Where?
No, go for further, yeah. So in 1800s, the world started becoming obviously more and more industrialized. So the birth of an industrial revolution. And in the 1960s, the birth of design science. And the birth of design science actually coincides with this new way of thinking at MIT, coming out of MIT, which is basically saying the kinds of challenges that the world is facing then are so complex that one faculty, one department, one way of thinking cannot solve it on its own. So as a result, we need a group of experts from the different departments within the university to come together to tackle these challenges, which is what we are calling the birth of design as a science. Then in 1970s, yes, please, go. Yep, Hurst Rittel comes to place. And next slide, please. Hurst Rittel comes up with this idea of the kinds of challenges that are facing our humanity today are called wicked challenges. These are very complex, quite fundamental challenges that are very, very difficult for humanity to tackle in isolation. In the 1980s, the Scandinavian approach adds to that. So the next one, please. The Scandinavians actually take a different approach, and they basically say that the only way we can actually create the kinds of products and services that our communities, our society use today can only be created by including the stakeholders, the different communities that will be impacted by these designs in the design process themselves. And there's actually a very interesting reason why, how they discover this, the needs of this, which is in the next slide, please. They basically say in Copenhagen, they give the brief to create kindergartens as well as parks, children's parks, to the best architects in the world. So the best architects come together to, design different types of community parks and, children's parks, and they realize that they're not succeeding. So you, as the trained architect and one of the best architects in the world, you are failing in the design of a kindergarten park for the kids. And the reason for that is you have no way to empathize with the kids, and you have no way of integrating their way of approaching this challenge into your design system. So out of that, participatory design emerges, which is currently one of the most important and needed tools for us as managers, CEOs, designers, community builders, municipality leaders, whatever you want to call it, to approach participatory approach to the way we design for our communities.
If I may, Kerem, ask a question here.
Yes.
Aicha, please, could you mute, because I can hear him twice.
Come again?
Can you please mute your mic?
Oh, sure.
Thank you. So just quickly, before this time period, there has been no such thing as participatory design. So everything that was built before was not for us. Is that, do we get that feeling? Is it okay to have that feeling as someone from that era?
Yeah, I mean, obviously participatory design didn't just emerge out of nowhere, but basically the Scandinavians, by approaching it through a different lens, they actually attributed this to the design community as not just a nice to have, but a must have if we were to actually tackle the toughest challenges that the world is facing today. And in many ways, I think municipalities are the quickest ones to adapt this, because a mayor of a city or the mayor of a community may not have the right answers for what the city needs, for what the community needs. So only by working hand in hand with the participants, with the individuals who are going to be actually impacted by the interventions, can we actually create the sustainable solutions that are needed. So yes.
Cool. So it sucked to live in the 50s. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And to be honest with you, participatory design is one of the fundamental elements of how we work at Atolye. We are designers, we are problem solvers, we are creatives, but we don't assume that we have the right answers to the kinds of challenges that we are fed. So we are talking with a lot of very, inspirational organizations in Qatar. And in all our conversations, we are leaning towards how do we actually collaborate together to create the kinds of solutions that your users, the users of your products, or the customers of your projects, or the future audiences that your experiences are tailoring towards. How do we actually integrate them into our design processes from the get-go? So continuing on, Aicha, I mean, I don't want this to turn into a history of this.
A conversation, and I do want to urge people to, at any point, if they have questions, just type them in there so I can interrupt.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's just going to be me and you chatting all evening.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'll skim through the rest quickly so that we open it up to more conversations. Robert McKim is an important person because he is a professor at Stanford, and he pushes his students on some really, really crazy challenges. So he would, for example, say, create a product through which you can walk on the sea. So these are the kinds of challenges that we are not fed on a daily basis, So only by putting ourselves out there, you can't design this in a silo. You can't design a solution to this on your own in your design class. you have to get out there, you have to prototype, you have to fall in the water, you have to hurt yourself in the design process. And only by going through these experiences, he believes you can actually create the kinds of sustainable solutions, bulletproof solutions that we can create. So out of one of his students, then continuing with the journey, is David Kelly, who is famously, the founder of IDEO, as well as the D School at Stanford, which is where I also did my, graduate studies. And David is known for a lot of inventions or innovations. One of the most important ones is the first mouse. And one thing that's really important is a lot of us might see the mouse as just a technology tool. But what is the question that you think is the mouse answering, or what is the question the mouse is trying to help make progress towards?
How do I use it? How do I use it?
How do I use it?
Like, it's asking for function, because you said there's different disciplines, so I have to consider, imagine.
How do I? Yeah. So how do I control the computer? How do we navigate through a control visual reference? Yes. So it actually is asking a very noble question. At the time of the mouse, actually very few people could use the computer. So the computer itself wasn't an accessible device to a lot of young people, a lot of old people, a lot of people who simply weren't digitally savvy. So it's a product in itself. It's a brilliant product, but it goes beyond the product of what it is. It's what is it it's trying to achieve, and it has gone through a lot of iterations of. In the next slide, you can see the number of iterations the product has gone through is tremendous in order to come to that right product, through which actually more and more people can access computers as a way to access information, to do different types of activities, create designs and everything else. So even though it's now a tool that we take for granted, the kind of thinking behind is actually quite noble. All of this is to say, we've gone through a long history of kind of like starting from how do I cut something to how do we make designs or computers accessible to a wide audience. Everything is following the same principle. We consider a situation that we are currently in, we imagine a better situation, and then we simply act to create that improved situation. In the next slide, Aicha, design thinking very much actually stems from this. We first discover the challenges that we are experiencing. We go and talk to users, we go and understand the world, we look at best examples. We really discover first what is the challenge at hand. Then we define, which is what we call the diverge. Then we converge into what is the problem that we are defining, what is it actually that we are trying to solve. Then using different tools and principles and procedures, we actually ideate to imagining that better situation. And there's many ways we can actually go about that better situation. And then we act to create that improved situation by prototyping and testing. This is basically the design thinking process, in a nutshell. And the reason why this process, in a nutshell, has been so transformative is it actually took design as a discipline from the designers themselves, people who've actually gone through 4, 5, 6 years of design training, and actually gave it to the individuals who may not have a design background, and basically said you can follow the same principles, the same procedures, the same processes to answer some of these challenging questions, which is if you click to the next slide, this creative problem solving method to even more and more complex problems that humanities are facing today, which brings us to basically these days. So as Atolye, since our foundational years, we worked on many different challenges, from establishing the social impact platform of the 21st century, which is now an active platform, to next slide, please, to building pedagogical labs within schools, using spaces as a tool to pioneer the education of the future, which is a long-standing collaboration we have with a lot of different schools in Turkey, K through 12, as well as universities, to actually igniting the power of human-centered design and creative leadership in the UAE government by building creative capabilities and establishing new creative roles. So it's more thinking about human systems. Next, please. All the way to actually Atolye itself is essentially us thinking about a question, thinking about the problem, and then following that process, the design thinking process, to tackling that challenging problem. So, you know, whether the output is a space, the output is a new museum, the output is a new school, the output is a new organizational system, the output is a digital tool that is used by a bank, all of that could have very different end products or end systems and services, but everything is designed following the same methodology, which is the design thinking methodology that we deploy. And again, obviously the methodology is relatively complex and requires a lot of hand-holding, but that's what we are here for. And part of the reason we are excited about our journey in Qatar is to work hand in hand with organizations like the Makery, as well as like the kinds of clients and partners that we are talking to, so that we tackle these, you know, complex challenges in the most in the best ways possible. So with that, I leave the mic back to our moderator Hamad. Thank you for listening, and I'll be here to answer any questions you might have.
We're not going anywhere, bro. There's no running away. You can't just drop all these bombs on us and expect us to take it quietly. As soon as you started talking about the evolution, I had one question, and I feel like it was answered, but we're still living in it at the same time. So when you talked about the users and the people who are productive design, so it's fair to say that people in our generation, and every generation have always lived on what people before us thought was best for us. Whereas today, when you're talking about using these ways of thinking in a corporate setting, my first question to you is, if the old dinosaurs, let's call them, still exist, how can we change? Because we're the ones in the office every day. We're the ones working, you know what I mean? It's the people who are working constantly and with innovation and new tools and things like that. When you go into and this is for Maryam as well, someone who's, you know, I feel like there's a cultural change and a cultural shift that needs to happen before people consider what you're talking about. You know,
yeah.
And anyone at this point in the audience who's listening, if you have any questions, do write them. But Maryam, give me an answer. What do you feel like in Doha on the ground with what we've heard in design thinking implementation in a corporate setting? Is that easy? Is it tough? Do people understand what you're doing?
Well, let's look at I think not just the corporate setting. I mean, design thinking as a methodology and as an approach is something that sounds, for example, when we say it's a problem and we want to solve it, in its essence, it sounds very simple. But usually we end up solving the wrong problem, which ends up wasting a lot of resources and a lot of time and effort. So I think realizing that realization is key. And I think some of the perhaps older generations, they maybe struggle with acknowledging that they have been trying to solve the wrong problem. So when the next generation comes on board and tries to say, well, we've been putting a Band-Aid on an infected wound and we need to actually treat that wound itself, it becomes a bit of a challenge and it becomes a bit of a conflict. And if we actually look at our national vision, I mean, one of our main challenges is the preservation of cultural traditions is a major challenge that confronts many societies around the world with this rapidly globalizing and increasingly connected world. And here, I mean, not here, I'm in Moscow, but I mean, back there in Doha, I mean, it's the speed at which everything has been changing and evolving over, let's not look too far. Let's just look back at the back 25 years. I mean, just look at the skyline, how the skyline evolved from the past 10 years, not only 25 years. It came a long way. And that rapid growth in the skyline is actually a reflection of the economy. But I think in Qatar, we were able to kind of, I mean, it's not an easy journey, but I think we still, there's an effort and like it's visible.
It's evident in all the in the road work that's happening after the 25 buildings have gone up. There's no parking.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is take a car, go to West Bay, and try and get out.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And no, but I mean, there's the metro to go there. You can go by your car. I mean, it's hard to walk still. I mean, we still have a long way to go there. But I mean, we have come a long way. But I think Qatar still maintains its identity, sure. Its cultural values. I mean, we are looking at the future. We're not scared of the future. We're meeting today's needs, but we're also maintaining a unique identity for Qatar as a country.
And is it there from a, because I'm still trying to, like, it's the evolution of design and design thinking methodologies to answer a question. So you have a problem and you need a solution, and it's your way that gets us to the most optimum solution. How does this interfere with consultants or strategists or interior, like, you know, when we're looking at a space for one person, or is it the same from a company that is 10 people to a company that's 3,000 people? Is it the same for someone who wants to set up a online business versus someone who has a boutique online store? Like, is it from a communications, marketing, branding perspective? We have ways to answering these questions. Are there, you know, is the methodology similar in any way to problem-solving solutions that exist today?
So, in terms of problem-solving, you mean in Qatar as a country?
No, as your both Makery and Atolye, the design thinking, the approach. Kerem, you said that it's brought all of these tools and this way of thinking to answer more, or to answer bigger and larger problems, and more complex problems. And we've seen a result of that. Obviously, you guys are doing some great work in Turkey, but there's still a relationship of decision being made somewhere in order to instill this change. I feel from what you're saying, Maryam, that we're still in that place. Yes, the conversations are happening, but Kerem, you also said typically this is not, there's a lot of hand-holding. So what is a journey through a reform, let's say, a practical guide or kind of a case study, if you can share something very quickly of what this looks like? So if we're talking about someone in a ministry, it's not going to be the same as talking to someone who's running a youth center, swimming youth center or something like that, right? There's...
Yeah, so this is for me.
Whoever wants to jump in. I mean,
I'll let Kerem answer this one. And then
if I may, the beauty of design thinking approach is it includes everyone. Everyone is aligned. The process itself, you bring everyone, the decision makers, the experts, and the designers to come together, think together, define the problem, and find out the solution together. So yes, there is still this gap between the decision makers and the problems that we need to solve, but it's becoming more and more. The gap is becoming smaller, and I think Kerem could tell us more about the eGov, because that's a project I think it made a huge difference when it comes to the Dubai government. If you may.
Yeah, I mean, it's you say that, but for me, I've been on committees, I've been on boards, I've been on, you know what I mean, on a personal level. Like I've sat with consultants, I've sat with designers, programmers, coders. I like what I'm hearing, and I'm sure everyone else is also sharing some of that sentiment. But in the essence of it is, you guys get people and you sit and work on a long project for a long time with every key stakeholder in that. But what's the difference between that way and a strategic steering committee, which we have plenty of?
If I may add before Kerem chips in, I think the key here is exactly what you just highlighted, is realizing that we actually have that problem. And this realization on its own is a problem that we need to solve. So how do we solve this problem? So we approach it with the design thinking methodology. We diverge and converge, and we come up with ideas. And this is exactly actually what we have been doing in Makery as well, because many times the mindsets are not aligned, and people are not very much aware of the need for design thinking methodologies to be used. So usually the first step is awareness about what design thinking is, what value it can add. And from this awareness, you'll be able to realize if the mindsets are aligned, and if the mindsets are not aligned, let's be honest here, there's nowhere we can go. But I mean, we can try different ways. We can try to fix that table, but sometimes
that's what I wanted to get to. At the end of the day, it's a bunch of people. Like, and for me, I've been quoted for saying this, but people are the worst. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, you can't please everyone.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean? And people have different tastes, people have different ideas, but Kerem, you've done it. You have had cases where you've been in a room and you had a core problem, and it's not just hopes and dreams that we're looking for. It is actual, you have results.
Yeah. So I would say there's two things. One is I think there is usually a miscategorization of what the problem we are looking at is, in terms of, is it a problem we can solve by having a bunch of strategic minds looking at the best-in-class examples in the world and then trying to adapt those, solutions into the problem we have? Or is it actually a more complex challenge that we have, where the fact that somebody else did something is not going to actually solve the problem that we have at hand? And more we realize that I've been part of strategic consultancies, management consultancies, and I have a lot of friends we actually recruit from those organizations. There's actually a lot of value in the way of thinking that they bring to the table. However, we realize more and more that the kinds of challenges that we are, tackling on a daily basis are evolving more into those complex challenges where we need creativity, we need radical collaboration, we need new ways of thinking into how we solve challenges. So that's, I think, one is like, how do we categorize the kinds of challenges we are facing? For the right categorization is the most important one. The second is, our most difficult yet most impactful projects, I would argue, are less about creating new products, services, spaces, but more about organizational change driven projects, where we actually think of the organization as the challenge. We work hand in hand with the leadership of the organization to transform the organizational culture. And through that organizational culture transformation, the organization is now ready to work with us or without us to tackle the kinds of challenges that they are facing. And that obviously takes a lot of time. I mean, you use the word like dinosaurs or older cultures. There's a reason why those cultures have been successful for so long. It isn't that for no reason those cultures have emerged, have become the way they are. But whether they are relevant today or not is a different conversation, is a different question, And so Aicha referred to the project that it went beyond being a project to the programs that we ran in different parts of the Middle East, where we actually worked hand in hand with leadership of governments to transform the culture of the way government works. And that starts from the people, but it has to go into systems, into processes, into decision making, into how budgets are created. The dinosaurship isn't just in the hands of a few, it actually is in the whole organization. Similar to, we worked with some of the most, some of the biggest organizations in Turkey, both for-profit, non-profit, and we realized that the challenge isn't the problem that we are trying to tackle, but the challenge is in the organizational frameworks that the organization is coping with in terms of solving those challenges. So I would say today, when you just look at Atolye, what we're working on today, it's probably almost 50-50, whether we are working on a design challenge or are we working on the organizational transformation to then tackle the design challenge.
So if you have, without this collaboration, is there a design to the collaboration? Because so let's say we go into I'll give you an example of a problem here in Doha, traffic lights, for example. There's bottlenecks in every city. In Doha, there's quite a few, and it's in the center. The amount of people involved, it's ministries, right? So one solution, for example, a transportation solution, an accessibility solution, just moving around the city, transportation or public transport, it's not one entity. It's not just, as you said, there's cultural change in a hierarchy of one, but then you have a multiple groups of these silos that then have to come together. You have municipality, you have traffic, you have monitoring, you have the roadworks, you have so many people that need to come in to solve one problem. Now, if that's the case, are we not relying on the users to come up with the solutions and go back up rather than trying to gather everyone into a room? Because the way you're talking about it, like from an organizational structure, it's working to change the culture. But I'm trying to find a practical solution where you go to the street and the solution comes from there. Because, like tech, whenever you need it, these solutions now, Zoom, Demio, which we couldn't figure out entirely, but these came out of a necessity. The pandemic came and we're all like, okay, now we get it. We've changed how we work. We've changed how we consume content in such a short space of time. But that same solution didn't come from, the research center of COVID. It came from the people who were wanting to talk to other people. So at what point is finding the right solution not just enough, especially nowadays when there's an abundance of tech available to solve so many problems. Like for me, when I'm building a new e-commerce platform for someone, the amount of plugins that you can use are, it's a dime a dozen now. And then sometimes it's just so much easier to just, there you go, plug it in, and less conversations with people. It's a solution. So at what point are you looking at the people or the organization, and at what point are you just kind of, you know, oh, there's a quick fix. Is that never an option? Is that never something that happens where you have, oh, this is easy, here's a solution, plug and play, bro. You guys could have been doing this for 6 months. You just didn't know.
Hamad, I think I have. So I think in Doha, when you mentioned traffic, that was actually a very interesting example, because I mean, it's a real problem, and people do come up with their own solutions. I mean, usually, again, as our nature as human beings, for example, when you create a paved pathway for people to walk in, people choose to cross the grass and create their own pathway, which is a shortcut from point A to point B. Not because, I mean, and then one person after the other, and it becomes, and you can see the tracks of people using that, and that shows how human behavior is. So if the people who paved that road actually observe human behavior and watch that pathway, they will adjust and make it fit the users rather than forcing them to go on a corner and make the road longer. And just
the customer journey. That's what I talk about all the time. What is your customer journey? What point today that we literally build that?
The customer journey is usually, it comes in as many times when people sit in the room without the user in the room, they make assumptions on behalf of the users, and they call themselves users as well. I mean, I can be a user as well, but I mean, it's always important to bring someone who is of a different demographic, of a different, that's why we call it human-centric design. We also use inclusive design to bring people who are extremes on both ends, who use the services or use the products or facilities in a different way. And I mean, just to bring it, to bring an example, I mean, this is an example I always use when we give the design thinking workshops, which is on Heathrow Airport in Terminal 5. There was a study where they wanted to renovate the terminal, and they just sat in the airport and observed how people use the terminal. And they noticed that a blind person was going frequently to the bathroom, and that was actually an eye-opener. I mean, why is he going a lot to the bathroom? Maybe he needs to see a doctor, maybe something's not right. But again, because they...
or the floor wasn't done right. What was the reason he was going into the bathroom?
well, that was...
He wanted to use the bathroom, or was it like...
See, we always jump to assumptions, don't we? I mean, I jumped to the assumption myself. I mean, he needs to see a doctor. But I mean, when they went and they asked the guy, and then he just simply said, I cannot hear the announcements. And the bathroom is quiet and I can hear it. And simply the solution was to install the shower speakers, and so you can hear it regardless of the noise around you. But without actually sitting and observing the users using the space, navigating the space, they will not be able to solve that problem, because apparently he's not the only one facing that problem, but others also, but they can find their own ways around it, but he doesn't, because he's blind, he can't see, so he needs to hear the announcement. So sometimes it's very simple, right in front of us, and we just overlook it by throwing assumptions here and there.
Yeah. I think we're very close to the end, but we'll push it another 10 minutes if that's okay with everyone, because we did start quite late. Aicha,
we know about this, the time of the arrogant designer who knows everything and designs the best designs where everyone will use it is gone. Khalas. We need the designer needs to observe the user. There is an intentional design and non-intentional design. The users they choose to use the product in a different way, and we shouldn't say, yeah, stupid, the users, they don't know how to use our product, but we should embrace it and observe that and actually make it part of our thinking and designing. That's why the stakeholders has to be together, which is the user, the designer, and everyone involved in the design process.
Yeah, agree. I mean, it's, hey, listen, I'm products I consume. I'm not, we're all this generation, all we do is take. What are we going to say? And the more funky it is, the more we give فلوس. But sometimes it's, it's, I don't know. I'll ramble, so I'll just stay away, and I'll go back down to Chris, who's the only person who, from the audience, I believe, who said something which I totally agree with. It is indeed about changing the mindset from this is a project that we need to deliver to this is how we create value by solving a problem for the actual user. Well done, Chris. Does any objections to that? Engin hiding away in the corner, not allowing him to come on stage because we only have space for 4 people. Engin, do you disagree?
I can step down for Engin to come.
No, I'm just teasing. Don't worry about it. So nope, there you go, with a little smiley face. Thank you. Before we started, I asked people to answer a question, which is how often do you think about design in your day? And to that, we got 0 answers. So I guess no one learned anything today, unfortunately. So after this chat, definitely more often. The idea was that after this chat, we would understand that there is a lot more going on in the world of design. And thank you very much for the evolution. I like personally hearing like the origin stories. Does anyone have anything else they would like to add before we wrap up? Design is a blessing that I think about every day. I can't say any better than that. Anyone else from Atolye want to top that? Currently, Maryam is winning with her statement. Okay, I have to thank a list of people. Workinton, thank you for inviting us and thank you for these talks. I always love being a part of them. I get to learn. Hopefully, everyone else tuning in. We want to keep doing this. So if you are following us on this chat, do follow on social media at Workinton Qatar. And if you guys can put all your handles here for Atolye and Makery. And for me, it's Hamid Ammari. I really look forward to having these kind of conversations, and we will be back with Workinton with another Workinton virtual talk soon. So do follow us. And thanks again to everyone who's involved from Atolye, Engin, Kerem, Aicha, and from Makery, Maryam, Semaitt, and it's been me, Hamid Ammari. See you on the next one, guys. Bye-bye, everyone. There we go. People want to follow, and then we can go from there. Great. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.